Hello, and welcome to another episode of The World Beyond Your Door, where we explore the stories, lessons, and unforgettable moments that travel brings into our lives. And today's episode is going to be a bit of a personal one. We're diving deep into something that all travelers can relate to, those life-changing moments and travel experiences that have completely shifted our perspectives. So, sit back, relax, and join me as I share a few of my own stories and reflect on how travel has fundamentally changed the way I see the world. There's something about stepping outside of your comfort zone that has the power to completely transform you. For many of us, travel offers the chance to experience new cultures, meet people from different walks of life, and see the world in a way that no book or film could ever capture. I remember the first time I traveled abroad. I was nervous, excited, and had no idea just how much it was going to change me. But there's one experience that stands out above the rest, an adventure that truly reshaped how I view not only the world, but also my own life. Let's rewind a bit. It all started when I took a solo trip to Southeast Asia. I had always dreamed of visiting places like Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, but I never thought I would actually go. You know how it is, life gets in the way, there are always reasons not to go, and the timing never seems quite right. But finally, in the summer of insert year, I made the leap. And that first stop, Bangkok, Thailand, was the beginning of a journey that would alter my entire outlook. I'll never forget the first few hours in Bangkok. The city was a sensory overload, the sights, the smells, the constant hum of activity. It was like stepping into a world that existed completely apart from everything I knew. I remember walking down Khao San Road, where street vendors were selling everything from fried insects to handcrafted jewelry. There was a sense of freedom in the air, a kind of magic in the way people seemed to move without the rigid schedules that define my life back home. And that's when it hit me. We get so wrapped up in the hustle and bustle of our daily routines, thinking that our way is the only way. But here, in a city on the other side of the world, I was seeing a different rhythm of life. It was in Thailand that I had my first major epiphany. I spent a day visiting temples, not as a tourist snapping pictures, but as someone trying to truly understand the culture. The temples, with their intricate carvings and the peaceful stillness that surrounded them, made me reflect on the importance of mindfulness. In the US, I had always been a person who was always doing something. Whether it was working, planning, or just thinking about the next task at hand, I could never sit still. But here, in these ancient spaces, I was encouraged to be present, to quiet my mind and focus on the beauty that surrounded me. It was as though the temple itself was teaching me something I had forgotten, the importance of stillness, of slowing down, and appreciating the moment. That day at the temple, I began to grasp the value of simplicity. The Buddhist teachings I encountered there emphasized that happiness doesn't come from accumulating wealth or accomplishments, but from embracing the present and seeking inner peace. I left with a new appreciation for living in the moment, and I made a vow to myself that I would try to bring that mindset back home. Next, my journey took me to Cambodia, and it was there that I had one of the most profound experiences of my life, a visit to the Angkor Wat temple complex. Angkor Wat is one of the largest religious monuments in the world, and as you walk through it, it's impossible not to be awestruck by its grandeur. But it wasn't the sheer size of the temple that affected me most. It was the history. Standing in front of Angkor Wat, I learned that this ancient city was once the heart of the Khmer Empire, a civilization that flourished from the 9th to the 15th century. The temple was a symbol of their power, their culture, and their devotion to their gods. But what struck me most was the story of the Cambodian people's resilience. In the 1970s, Cambodia was torn apart by the Khmer Rouge regime, and the people suffered unimaginable hardships. Yet, despite everything, the spirit of the Cambodian people remained unbroken. That visit to Angkor Wat opened my eyes to the fragility of history and the strength of human endurance. It reminded me of how often we take our own comfort and stability for granted, how quickly things can change, and how, even in the face of immense suffering, there is always the possibility of rebuilding, of rising again. It was a humbling reminder to appreciate what I have and to never take it for granted. A few days later, I found myself in Vietnam, in a small town called Hoi An, known for its lantern-lit streets and incredible food. Hoi An was a quieter town compared to the others I had visited, but it had a unique charm that I found irresistible. I spent my days wandering through the narrow, cobblestone streets, sampling local delicacies like pho and banh mi, and soaking in the beauty of the historic architecture. But it wasn't just the beauty of Hoi and that left an impression on me. It was the way the people there lived with such warmth and hospitality. I remember one evening when I was sitting at a small cafe, sipping my iced coffee, when a local woman who spoke very little English came over to chat with me. She was curious about where I was from, what I was doing, and how I was enjoying my time in Vietnam. Despite the language barrier, we had a long conversation, and by the end, I was invited to join her family for dinner the next night. That dinner, shared with a family I had just met, completely changed the way I view human connection. It showed me that kindness and generosity aren't bound by language or culture. It's in our shared humanity that we truly connect. In that moment, I realized how often we let our differences divide us, when, in reality, we're all just looking for the same things: love, belonging, and connection. Of course, no travel experience is without its challenges. Not everything was smooth sailing, and there were moments of frustration, confusion, and exhaustion. But I think that's another reason why travel is so transformative. It pushes you out of your comfort zone and forces you to adapt. It tests your patience, your ability to problem solve, and your resilience. Every time I faced a difficulty, I found that I grew stronger, more adaptable, and more confident in my ability to handle whatever came my way. And when I returned home, everything felt different. I realized how much I had changed in those few months, how much my perspective had expanded. I no longer saw the world in the same narrow way. Instead, I began to appreciate the diversity of life experiences that exist all around the world. I learned not only to slow down and appreciate the present, but also to be more mindful of the way I interacted with others. I became more open-minded, more empathetic, and more aware of how interconnected we all are, no matter where we come from. So, what about you? Have you had any travel experiences that changed the way you view the world? I hope today's stories have inspired you to reflect on your own journeys and the ways that travel has shaped your perspective. No matter where you go or how far you travel, there's always something to be learned, something to be discovered, and something to be shared. Thanks for tuning in to the world beyond your door. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep opening your heart to the world.